want today's slide, if you want today's slide, they are slides. They are on the, you can just scan the QR code and then some questions as well. So, and again, we'll begin very shortly. Did you all hear me about the QR code? I may have been on mute. Was I on mute? Yeah, Danielle, I'm looking at you. You saying yes, I was on mute?
We were able to hear
Okay.
you were clear.
You said, okay. Even if you weren't able to hear me, please scan the QR code if you would like access to the slides. And then there's a list of questions on there as well. We will begin very shortly. Good afternoon. 2 minutes and we shall begin. Hope you all have had a great day. I see some people in costumes. Yay. I was telling Nicole, I was trying to put a costume on my dog and he is not going for it at all. He is not playing with me. Who is that from New Orleans Youth Alliance?
Rashida Govan.
Oh my goodness, I thought that was you. Hi, Rashida.
Hey girl, I'm having an air crisis, so you may or may not see me.
It's okay. It's okay. I
Full
feel
on.
your energy, so I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
So hello, everyone. My name is Shantae McKinley. I'm the director of the Positive School Center with the University of Maryland School of Social Work. I'm so excited to have you all here today. We will be doing our breakout series for the next 3 days. We have someone, Andre is going to present tomorrow, going deeper into the to the social discipline window. And then I think I am on Wednesday going deeper into socially engineered trauma. So it's a very macro perspective of trauma. So today we have my associate director, Nakoma, who is going to present for you today. And I'm so excited about that. Please make sure that you scan the QR code for the slides. And then if you have any questions, definitely the list of questions actually is going to be on a QR code, but if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll be checking the chat throughout, or you could just raise your hand, come off mute. It seems to be a small group, which is great. So you all can maybe have a conversation. So Nakoma, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you, Shantae, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our fall workshop hosted by the Positive School Center. Today, we will be talking about circles, which will lead us directly into tomorrow's session. As Shantae mentioned, for those that just came in, please feel free to use your phones to capture the QR codes and to retrieve the slides for today, as well as some restorative questions that you can use with your organizations or even possibly in your family. So again, I thank you. So for today's session, you will be able to answer, why do we use restorative circles? You'll also be able to address what are the core elements of a circle and why they are essential, and what are some examples of places that restorative circles can be used, and I emphasize outside of the classroom. And many times in the world of restorative practice and restorative circles, we focus on the classrooms and the school settings, but we want to expose you to the opportunity to use circles outside of the schoolhouse. By the end of this session, we hope that you'll be able to reflect on the relationships and environments you're in and how you can make them more restorative, as well as being able to commit to one environment where you will implement your restorative circles in the month of November. So I want you to understand, as you work with restorative circles, it's done with intention. As our communities build and establish their circles, the participants in a restorative circle feel valued. The students that we work with always feel like their voices are being heard. The staff that we are collaborating with and communicating with, they always feel a sense of value when we have our circle. So one of the things that restorative circles does is to allow the participants in the community to feel valued. The other thing is it helps to build a partnership with others in the network. And that's important when you are doing something, whether it's in a professional setting or the personal setting. You definitely want to ensure that you're establishing grounded and foundational partnerships in your community. And then the next part is it does just that. It builds community. It connects you in your community. It allows people that are associated with one another to begin to form connections. And as we go through this presentation, you'll get to see how these particular connections are made. And then, you know, one thing we all love is having fun. So when you are able to facilitate circles, I guarantee you it's fun. In the circles that we've held, we've had laughter, we've had chuckles, you know, you get to build bonds, you get this place of connectedness. And that's what you really want in our community. And if you're watching the news and you see all that's going on, like there's a lot of burden that's going on. And we want our communities to feel light, and we want them to feel joy in the midst of all of the things that they may see and experience. So again, circles that we encourage to be implemented are to be done with intention. Like it has to be really strategic because it allows for a space of vulnerability. And we see in our circles that people get to begin sharing things that may be near and dear to them. They get to voice some things that they may not voice in any other space. So one of the poems that we like to share is a brave space. And our circles literally creates a brave space for all participants. And then it allows for voice, where everyone has an opportunity to share and they're heard. So that's the validation. You know, sometimes you might be in a space and you see some people head nodding and giving those mm-hms and ahas. So those are the spaces of validation where the participants feel value. So circles are done with intention. There is a reason to facilitating a circle, whether again, it's in your personal life or in your professional life, circles can still be used. So why do we use circles with our restorative approaches? It's simple. It's to build relationships. We as people are hardwired for connection. We like to feel connected one to another. We want to be able to bond and establish some type of, whether it's a friendship, it's a partnership, it's some type of connection that allows us to move forward either in the work or somewhere in our life. So it says people are most happy, successful, and they feel as though they belong when people in positions of power and authority do things with rather than to or for them. And that's talking about our social discipline window and the restorative practice model, which you will hear more about if you join us tomorrow. But in reality, like we want people to do stuff with us. And they say if you teach a person how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. But if you fish for them, they'll only eat for the day, right? So you want to get in a place where we are doing things with an individual and not to and for them. So having these circles formed and facilitated properly truly allows the space to be in a with domain rather than to and for. And I know sometimes we get in a position, in a mindset where things happen and we have to do stuff to an individual or do something for that person. But the reality is we really want to spend more time doing things with our community members, doing things with our family members, our spouses and our children. And when we do things with them, that allows the empowerment. So when we look at our restorative approaches, the bulk of our time, and we encourage your time with your communities to be spent in the proactive domain. That is time that you will take to build relationships. While you're spending time in that 80%, you are establishing norms within your community. You are talking about expectations that are shared and agreed upon by all participants. And sometimes this takes some time, but we say you want to spend more time being proactive, more time building, developing, and establishing these relationships. And you're building that community, because that's what allows our communities to have that foundation. When you spend that time using circles, it becomes a part of your daily routine. And the affirming language is positive language and is using different type of communication. So instead of telling someone, no, don't do something, for example, working with our students, instead of telling the students to not run, don't run, we're giving negative connotation. So instead we say, walk. It's safer. I feel more comfortable when you're walking in the hallway because it's safer. Or even with your children, you want to tell your child to do something, is giving them an alternative method to get them to do what you want them to do rather than focusing on the negative. And then the best part about this, spending time in this 80% proactive, you have impromptu conversations that happen all the time. Like you're in a random situation and you'll have that impromptu conversation. And those impromptu conversations probably allow you to get to know people a little bit more and deeper and more intimate, because you have that opportunity to share with each other and to hear what's going on. So when you're spending the bulk of your time, the 80% of your time, building relationships and building community, when there's a harm or a breach in your community, in your relationship, in your partnership, then that's the responsive side, the 20%. So that's the part where we spend time doing conflict mediation, conflict resolution. That 20% is where you restore relationships and you begin to mend the harm that may have been caused. But during restorative circles, we spend more time building relationships and building community. And when I worked in the school, I'm a former principal, and spending time in the school, I did a lot of proactive restorative circles. So I worked with my staff. We had circles in just about every single meeting that we can possibly facilitate: staff meetings, leadership meetings, school family council meetings, because it was about building the community. We wanted to establish a norm that we were working together in any initiative and any program that we wanted to move forward. So when we hold our circles, we don't just randomly pull everybody together and start talking over one another. There's actually a script, and there's a system, a strategic system that we use. And this is our circle script. And again, as we're working with schools this year, one of the things that really brightens my day is when we see our schools using these scripts. And I mean, I'm telling you, students that are facilitating the circles, they may have the script in their hands, teachers have it at hand. So these scripts are really helpful because it allows your circles to be organized and it allows them to be structured so things are not getting out of hand. So step one with creating a circle is to be intentional about calling the circle. You want to be deliberate with your transition. And we've seen sessions where people use songs, people use chants, and I encourage our community members to allow the students, allow your family members, allow your friends to help you create the song or the chant. And I'm in a fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and we sing a song when it's time to get our brothers in the circle is calling all cues to the floor. Omega said we have some here, but we need some more. And what happens, all of the brothers begin to form this circle and we begin singing together. So it's deliberate and it's intentional. And you want to make sure that when you're creating your circles, everyone can see each other's face. That's the biggest part about building community, being able to look at one another, read body language. And the other part of it is not only is it beautiful to see one another's faces and how each other look, you get to read their body language. So if someone is feeling, if someone is feeling a little off or, they're not comfortable, their body language can tell you what's going on. And as the facilitator of the circle, you can make note and then you can pull them later on. But seeing everyone's faces and body language, and when you call that circle, helps to give you a quick informal assessment of what's going on in your immediate community. Again, this is professional, adults to adults. This is personal within your family structure, with adults who are working with children, you can do it with them. So this is something that is really important when you're calling a circle. And for those that are working with children, feel free to let your children be creative. You'll be surprised of what they can do. We love to see our babies making up the songs and the chants and then making it into a fun and friendly competition. Circles are also great for introduction. So today, I went to Cross Country Elementary Middle School to speak with some sixth graders. And, me being new to the community, I didn't know them very well, and they surely didn't know me. So we used our circle to greet one another and facilitate introductions. I let them know who I was and what my role and my position, and they each had an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves. So that call to circle is good to help be intentional with the process. And you can also integrate a mindful moment. So many schools and many businesses, I've even heard of staffing at Johns Hopkins facilitating a mindfulness moment. So they're participating in breathing exercises because it helps to control your blood flow. It helps to control your heartbeat. It relaxes you and minimizes stress. But the other reality is anyone who's faith-based attendee, we have those mindful moments of prayer. You join in the circle and you might start your session in prayer. So again, you get to see how circles can be used across the board. And when we have our circles at the Positive School Center, we like to identify how we're going to share in our sequence. So you either have a sequential go around where you identify whether you're going to start to the left or to your right. And what happens in sequential go around, everyone gets to participate in order and no one is caught off guard. Those who are in the circle really understand when it's their turn, they're going to have an opportunity to speak, and it also gives them some time to think. So when we have our circles, we call the circle, we establish our norms and routines, but as the facilitator, we will go first. So I would lead the circle, again, letting my participants know I'm gonna go to the left, so that next person knows who's going to go next after me. And that gives them time to prepare their thoughts and prepare what they're going to share as I'm speaking. The next type of circle that is sometimes done is the non-sequential circle. And you have to know your audience for this. If you facilitate and engage your group in a non-sequential circle, sometimes that gets them caught off guard and the anxiety causes them to lose their frame of thought and thinking. So when you do that, you have to really understand who your audience is or have a true purpose to the non-sequential. We recommend the sequential circle because again, that gives the consistency, it gives the structured order, and you might have those shy people in your group and they don't, they're really not that outgoing. So that gives them an opportunity to prepare themselves so that they are able to share when it's time. The other beautiful thing about this is when you're going in circles, people may have an opportunity to pass. And that's all right. You let them pass, but you let them know, I respect that and I honor your pass, but we'll come back around to you. And you'll see that again in the next few slides. But when you're going sequentially, people will have an understanding of what to expect and they won't get caught off guard. The second step for our restorative circles is the why. Why are we having a circle? Is it a family meeting? Is it just a goal setting session? Like, you establish the why, set your norms. And some of the norms could be something like make sure we're an active listener, be a respectful listener. When you speak up, speak out, speak clear, and encourage your participants to honor the circle. You want everyone to pay attention. You want to keep information in that circle confidential. So whatever your community agrees upon, that will become your working norms. And this is repeated every time you have a circle. And the other thing is we realize sometimes as populations and audiences may mature or change and shift over a season, your norms may have to change. So you want to always revisit the norms to make sure that they are still adequate for the purpose that you are calling the circles for. But you want to make sure you have those ground rules and share them out loud. Don't just assume that because we've done it before, it's already known and it's understood and it may be posted somewhere, but you still want to say it out loud. You want to be intentional about communicating what your purpose and your ground rules are. So the other thing is a talking piece, and this is where some of the fun comes in. You identify your talking piece, and your talking piece is a item that is personal to you. It's something that allows your audience, your participants, your circle members to be more connected to you. You share a little bit about your talking piece and what value it has to you, but I caution you, if you are using something, be mindful if it's of so much value that you don't want it taken or broken, because it's a value to you, right? So you don't want anything that would cause harm to you as you're trying to build community. But the talking piece creates an opportunity to learn about one another in the circle. All participants should be able to take a turn bringing their own talking piece. If you do it by week, by session, but this helps to establish an understanding a little bit more intimately of each individual that participates in your circle. And as our team at the Positive School Center, we all share a little bit about ourselves. And this allows us to become not just colleagues and coworkers, but really allows us to be family. And that's what happens when you're holding circles regularly. It builds the relationship and it creates a tighter bond amongst a group of individuals that's participating. And that's why we say do it daily or do it regularly, so that you have that ability to connect with one another and learn things about each other. So then you're able to support your community members. We pass the talking piece again, either sequentially or non-sequentially. We typically do sequential and we pass it, and everyone has an opportunity to receive it, to speak when they have it. And that talking piece also indicates who's the speaker at that moment. So this morning when I was with my group, we had that talking piece and we were able to remind the students in the group, because they hadn't really done circles. We reminded them who has the talking piece as the speaker. And they quickly honored that opportunity to listen to their classmate and to be attentive to who was sharing at that moment. So when it's done properly and it's done with value, all of the members will be more than willing to honor the agreements that is set. And now with this such as this meeting here, we're virtual, right? Everyone is either Zoom or Teams or one of those virtual platforms. You can still hold circles and have the process going virtually. You can either share the names in the chat of individuals and you can have the share out go in order. Or one thing that I've started doing is having participants raise their virtual hands. That also helps to create an order. So when the virtual hands go up, the individual will share out when it's their turn, they remove their hand, and the cycle can continue that way. It helps to keep order, it helps to keep structure, and it still helps to ensure that there's voice that everyone has to share. We also use a co-facilitator. So you may have noticed Shantae has been supporting me throughout this session, right? So we have co-facilitators. So if I have a virtual session and I'm focusing on presenting and talking, that co-facilitator will help identify any participants that we may have missed. And that, God's honest truth, that happened to us a few meetings ago. We had all of the participants sharing out, but just, mistakenly, we missed a few names, but our co-facilitators helped to capture those names. So again, we ensure that everyone had voice in our sessions. And, we joked about it because we like to have fun. You said, save the best for last, and, last but not least. So, you make light of it and you give everyone the opportunity to feel like they're valued and their voice is heard. And to be perfectly honest, we're still in a place of safety and caution. So if anyone is concerned about germs when you're in person, you can use hand sanitizer. Clorox wipes if you are passing something around, and at the end of the session, you can just wipe it down. But these are just some suggestions that you can take from and apply it to your circles. So this is just a matter of ensuring that things are being done in a decently and orderly fashion. But the talking piece is very important because it allows people to connect to you and to learn a little bit about yourself and become more inclined to who you are as a person. The other thing about the talking piece is it builds routines. So it helps to get you to a place from impromptu sessions up to higher level circles. So the routines is imperative. So then you have questions. That's the fourth part, right? And this happens really quickly. So even though our sharing now is step by step, when you are in a circle, it happens really smoothly and really swift. So it's not going to feel segmented, but I want you to understand each individual step to facilitate an effective and adequate circle. So the fourth step, after you've called the circle, you've set your norms and expectations, you describe your talking piece, you have a question. And the question is to help, again, create the community. It's to help hear voices, to help people connect with each other. It's to help those 4 V's. And that's where you start to see some of the validation and the value to take place as people are being vulnerable in their brave spaces. So you can start with a low risk question and then transition to a high risk question. And somebody might say, well, what's a low risk question? Or what's a high risk question? Low risk question could be something like, what's your favorite color? So in your circle, the question for today is share your favorite color and why. And your participants will share their favorite color. And it's low risk because it doesn't cause any type of concern. It does not push the participants into a place of feeling uncomfortable because they're not yet ready to share. Some other questions that we've asked our participants are, if you were a soundtrack, what song would you be? What season represents you? So these are some low risk questions. It brings joy. It sometimes creates this feeling of nostalgia because it gets people reflecting. And as they share out, the validation, what we love in the Positive School Centers, when people start nodding, and giving the I agree symbol, because that means we're connected. We are showing similarities, or we can relate to something someone is sharing. A higher risk question, and you're going to see some more examples, is, what are some things you can do when you feel under pressure? So that's a higher risk question because that causes some more thinking, a little bit more in-depth consideration for the answer. The other part is to let everyone speak at least once in a sequential circle before you let another person say more. And again, today I had that very same situation where one of our students was so eager. They wanted to share out more. They wanted to give us some more information. So I acknowledged them. I see you. I'm gonna come back to you. So we want to let the rest of our circle finish. And the student felt good about it. He knew he was acknowledged. He understood that we were going to come back to him. And then once we finished the first round of circle, we immediately went back to him, and then he was able to share out. So making sure, because again, you want to be sure that it's equitable. And that's the beautiful thing about our restorative circles is it provides equity in sharing. Everyone has an equal opportunity to share, give something. And even for those shy individuals that's not too outgoing and they don't speak too much, they may want to pass. And this is the fourth bullet there. If they pass, that's all right. We respect their pass, but let them know, I'll come back to you. I'm gonna give you some time to think. So then you go around your circle and you come back and you ask them, are you ready to share? And if they're still not too sure, you give guiding questions, just so they have something to say and be included in the participation of the circle. But we respect when they're just not comfortable, they're not ready. But eventually, the more you do it, the more consistent you are, they will come around and they will surely share. The fifth step of our circle process is to reflect on the circle. You thank your participants for engaging in your circle. You may have a short question just to capture the entire session or just to move you into the next step. A quick question could be on a scale of from 1 to 5, how are you feeling? Or if you were a color, red, yellow, green, where are you right now? That'll again gives you an opportunity to do a quick assessment of your group, see where they are, see how they're feeling, or for my educators, I might take you in, you might have a question that's connected to your lesson. For family members, you may want to ask your family relatives a question that will lead you into the next conversation. But the closeout is important because that helps seal the deal. That is the punctuation on our circle. So then you can officially close the circle and then begin transitioning into the next session. So here's a beautiful thing, y'all. As I said at the beginning of this session and workshop, we typically focus on circles in school settings and education settings, but circles can be held anywhere. School and workplaces, within your families, community meetings, and students amongst themselves. And I've seen students do it. So when you ask, like, where can I have circles? Like, you know, I'm not a teacher, or, you know, I'm a community activist or a community advocate. How can I have circles? You too can have circles, and you pull your community together, you pull your participants together, and you be intentional about calling a circle, but everyone can have a circle. And it can be as small as 2 people, and it can be as large as you know, necessary, but, you know, you want to encourage the participation of individuals. So circles around the school, and I want you to be ready, because I'm gonna ask you to put some stuff in the chat in a second. So be ready for me. But circles around the school, and as a former principal, I did a lot of this. When again, like I said, with my staff members during staff meetings, team meetings, we had circles, and they knew we had to get in circles because that helped to keep our community consistent. With families, when I had conferences, we went into a space where I can facilitate a circle. I tried to get out of my office where it was a little tighter, and we went into a library or a conference room, and we had a circle. Everyone had the opportunity to look each other in the eyes, see one another face to face. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I've experienced that I love when I did circles with families during conferences, when there was a conflict and families got together and they began sharing, you can see their disposition change. You can see them lighten up and loosen up because they got to hear what was going on, and they got to experience one another's stories, and they learned about it. And by the end of most of my meetings, these parents were able to share contact information. They stayed in touch. They supported one another. So this is, again, another example and another model of how you can build a village using restorative circles. And then in the community, again, you may have partner meetings or neighborhood association meetings where you're having mission and vision sessions. So at the end of the day, circles can be held just about everywhere. And again, somebody in this workshop today may be saying, well, I'm not an educator, I'm not in the school, I'm in the community. But you too can take this at home. So I want you all to start putting in the chat at this moment, what are some other things that you think you can use a circle for? What are some possible options that you, based on what you've heard so far, how can you incorporate circles in your life? So family time at dinner, holidays. So if it's not on the list, I want to hear from you. I want to, and if like Ms. Shantae said, if you want to open up your mic, raise your hand. I want to hear from you. What are some other areas that you think circles can be used in? Thank you. HR, staff cohesion, team building. Any other thoughts? Baker, yes, please share.
Hey, so I actually used this before. So when I was having discussion about my household with my wife and my children, we actually did a circle, and the circle actually helped us understand each other's perspective just a little bit more, and which I thought was more effective than building a bridge. And sometimes it's hard for the children to talk to the adults, and the adults to have the children understand certain things. So once we did the circle, we was able to break down certain barriers.
Thank you for sharing. That was amazing. That's a perfect example of, using it with the families. That was ideal. We have relationships, romantic relationships with youth groups, school counseling, absolutely. And I mean, the list can go on, right? Like circles can be used in a number of ways. And, when you think of faith-based institutions, many times people will join together and they will join a circle and they will have a word of prayer or sing a hymn or, have a moment of meditation. So circles can be used anywhere. Like the example I gave earlier with my fraternity. Not only do we use it for singing and chanting, but we also use it to have dialogue, to have conversations, to talk about business. So circles can be done in any capacity. And I too use it, Mr. Baker, with the family. We'll gather around either in the living room or in the dining room, and we have our circle time. And I'll mess around and I'll shout out, family meeting, and everybody will come together and we'll talk about, anything that's going on, just checking in on how the day went or how the week went, or, what are the plans if we want to talk about family vacation. So we can use this time, across the board, and it's really impactful. And as Mr. Baker just shared, if you have a family decision that needs to be made, like call a circle. Yes, please come again.
So I also understand because I told them. So one day my daughter just said, "Hey, look, we need a family circle." But to me, that shows that we value everything that you need to say, and we actually on the same common ground in our conversation and the value of our conversation.
Thank you. And thank you to your daughter, because again, she felt valued enough to call that family circle. And like I said, students, children, offspring, they'll call a circle quick on us. And if we're not ready, they might catch us off guard, but when they're empowered and they feel like they have voice, they'll call a circle. So that's good. I appreciate that, and continue to encourage her to advocate for herself and speak up for herself. But to my guests here, my participants, like I encourage you to really start owning circles. And it can start just small. You might want to do once a week, but the more you do circles, the more you engage in having circles, the better your communities will be, the stronger your communities will feel. I have Natasha says, I want to try this with my school district equity committee. One with the extracurricular student club, the students in the student setting, the son at home. Absolutely. So and I love the last part, a group to address racism and the community. Oh my goodness. If we can get connected before the end of the session, I would love to have our group and our team members share some resources with you. But that's it. That's the idea. Like, take this concept and we can run with it. So here are some questions that you can ask from home. or wherever. So these are, and when we talked about low stakes question versus high stakes question, on this chart, a low stakes question might be my favorite food is, or what's my favorite food? And then the high stakes question is, if something happens, what does shoes say about a person? You know, because it's a little bit more elaborate thinking. What does your shoes say about you? And to anybody that's a sneakerhead, you know, your sneakers or your shoes, and I love a good pair of Stacey Adams. So what would my shoes say about me? Like those are higher level questions, because it pulls a lot more information, and it causes us to be more intentional and more vulnerable about what we share. So you go from low stakes to high stakes over the course of time during your circle facilitation, because you want to build community. You don't want to have anyone to feel isolated. You don't want to have anyone feel stressed about having a circle. And when it's done properly, like Mr. Baker said, the children, participants, they'll ask for it, you know? So you might have your set circles, your normed routine circles, but if there's something that happens, and that's why we do the 80% proactive and the 20% responsive, if there's a moment where a responsive circle is needed, someone can call that circle. And these are still the questions that you can experience. If something happened, you ask them, well, what happened? How did that make you feel? What can we do differently to solve this issue? And that's the restorative model that we are implementing and we encourage, and we work with our schools to facilitate. And I'm telling you, we've seen school culture and climate turn around when circles are being used regularly. In classes, you know, you feel the warmth in the class community or school community or in church community. So we've worked with the YMCA of Central Maryland. We've done a number of different partnerships, and when they began to understand why circles are used, they shifted. And not that anything was wrong, but you can just sense the shift in their communication, in their interaction, just because they began implementing circles. And again, it can be as few as 2 to 3 people, or as big as 20 or more, but circles are important. So what I want you to take away from this today is to make a commitment.
So Nakoma, can I add one thing?
Yes.
So I think that you're definitely accurate when we think about routines, and that and I think Mr. I think he may be gone. Oh, Mr. Baker said, like, once we start doing routines, like my family, and people may be resistant at first, right? So my dad, who's 70 something, was resistant to having, I'm like, Dad, let's circle up and let's do something for Thanksgiving, right? So he's sitting there frowning and like, all right then, but he did it because it was me, I'm the youngest. So now I don't even have to act, like when we sit down, he'd be like, Shantae, what's the question? Oh, okay. I'm glad you know where we're going with this whole thing, because this is just what we do. Like when I'm home, and she lives in Chicago. So when I'm in Chicago, this is what we do. We have a question. And my sister's like, what question, y'all? What y'all talking about? And so then my niece will explain to them, Auntie Shantae asks a question and we all have to answer it before we eat or before we do something. And so like they all know. And so she's like, oh, okay, well then let me join in. So I think that, initially, and this goes for even like at the workplace, some people are resistant to questions, but when they start seeing it routinely done, and they start listening to people become more vulnerable and sharing themselves, is going to push them to say, hey, I guess it's not so bad and I could do it too. I can share out, even if they want to share out something that it may be a little bit negative. They just want to say something. It's okay, because when they said we're going to turn it into something positive. So it's fine. So even when you get those naysayers or those people that are resistant, it's still, they'll eventually turn around. We've seen it happen with students. We've seen it happen with just family members and parents. So I think so, just routinely, if you keep doing it, people just buy into it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that point. And you mentioned resistance and personalities. One of the other points I wanted to make is, while facilitating circles, one of the things I shared is to allow everyone to share before someone says something else. And sometimes we may be in a circle or in a meeting and you have strong personalities. Somebody they're very vocal and they want to get their thoughts off their chest. And, you want to encourage them to allow others to share and then give them the floor to share again. But sometimes, you got to have those real vocal community members and they always have something to say and they always have something to share. But ask them if they will, honor the circle so that those that have not shared yet will have the opportunity to share. And I've experienced where parents, community members, various individuals that I've worked with, they do honor it, and you build up their capacity for patience. And by the time, the consistency gets them to realizing like, well, Mr. Mosley, Principal Mosley, when I was sitting as the principal, well, he's gonna have everyone else talk before I get to say something again. So it again helps to establish equity in your community. So to our visitors today, I ask that you make a commitment. Commit to one of the environments that you heard about today, where you will either start implementing or continue to implement restorative circles for the month of November. Tomorrow, if you join us, we hope that you will join us for our restorative, the social discipline window, a restorative strategy for self-care with our brother, our partner, our friend, Andre Turner. This is going to be a really good connector to the circles, and it'll allow us to understand the social discipline window when we talked about the with rather than the 2 and the 4 box. But then it also gives you an opportunity to learn some strategies for self-care, because we're all hardworking people on this line. And, and that's another thing I'm learning is I work really hard, and sometimes I do not give myself enough grace for self-care. So this session tomorrow, I'm looking forward to, and my circle with my team members, Ms. Shantae and the team, they hold me accountable. I've shared some things that I wanted to do for myself, and now ask me, Mo, did you get to the gym? Or have you worked on this? So, these are good connectors from today's session with circles into tomorrow. So if you have not done so, please make sure you sign up. We're asking that you take a moment to complete the survey. You can scan it with your phone through the QR code. And then you also have the links that'll be posted in the group. But I do thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you for your support, Shantae. And I hope you've gained something from this Circles workshop. I know I have learned to implement them more frequently and more consistently, not just at work, but even in my personal life. And it makes a difference in our home and the organizations that I work with beyond the Positive School Center and my house. At this moment, I'll take any questions, or if you have anybody wanted to share anything else, this is the moment where you are more than welcome to raise your hand and ask a question, or let us know how this has impacted you and how do you see yourself implementing this moving forward. Yes, Natasha.
I was just wondering if you have any suggestions on how to present this idea to school administration, in hopes of getting leadership to implement this kind of thing, like at staff meetings or with HR, or just as a community building thing for schools. If for those of us who don't have those top tier positions where we can just say, hey, we're going to do this now, but how can we inspire our school administrators to start building community with staff members in this way?
Yeah. So one thing, just sharing, say, hey, I attended this amazing, awesome, phenomenal. I attended this workshop on restorative circles. And they talked about, using circles to build community, to help with hearing voice and making sure that everyone feels valued. I think, it was really insightful, and, something I would love to see if we're able to try to implement it. And even if, you want to start with a small group and then begin to build it there, but it's just sharing the information. And, Shante, are you able to drop our information in the chat for Miss Natasha? This
Sure.
way, if she's able, if she wants to, you can share this information, our information, with your principals, and we are more than willing to, consult with them. But definitely starting with hey, I just attended this workshop on circles, and it seems really cool. And the facilitators have worked with students and schools, and like both Shante and I are both former principals. So these are things that we did, and we saw the change. It works. There's really legitimate research that supports the use of restorative practice in circles. So just let them know you attended the workshop. You think it's something that'll be beneficial for your school community. You will love to give it a try.
And also look at your school data, right? So when we think about, I think what speaks mostly to principals is when they start thinking about their data. How do I change the number of being suspended? How do I change, if we look at climate surveys, how do I change the way parents feel when they walk into the building? And so for me, my teachers came to me and said, hey, so even though our suspensions weren't extremely high and we were doing some work, but we knew that there was restorative practice is a very proactive space to be in. A lot of people look at it as responding to conflict, but really, in order for you to respond to something, there has to be community built already, right? And so that 80% of the time you're building the community. And so my teachers came to me and they had that discussion like, look, we need to start thinking about like, how do we've been responding to things. How do we build a space where students can thrive and it's equitable for everyone? And so that's how we got into restorative practices. And so it really is looking at when we start thinking about, especially when you think about school to prison pipeline and different things like that, and people having voice and honoring people's culture and honoring who they are and honoring voice. If you take it to and sometimes it is getting some teachers together or some people that are in your office together. So you come in like as a united front, like that's what my teachers did. They came as a united front. I'm like, this is something that I think that we should do. And once they explained it to me, I was like, oh my goodness, yes. And so it really is just getting everybody together to have that conversation and coming with almost like a plan of this is what it would look like for us. Because I think a lot of times the pushback is, oh, that really can't happen here. Yes, it can. This is the amount of time it takes, so and we can help you with that.
Absolutely. And yes, I chuckled so heartily because I know the feeling when the staff come together as community and they share something, and especially if it has value that'll benefit the students, principals generally listen. So thank you, Shante, for bringing that out. And to Mashika Mariska, yes, we'll get with our assistant director for the intensive climate cohort, and we'll work on getting this recording posted and out. So if you're not following us, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Positive School Center. We like to promote a lot of our information and activity, so we'll have this information posted. And thank you, Michelle. We appreciate your feedback. And I'm glad that you feel you can implement it with your 10 and 12-year-old. That is amazing.
I have a question.
Somebody had a question?
Yeah, so I was just questioning, what is the foundation of the concepts that you utilize at the Positive School Center? Like, where did you borrow or copy this conscious idea from?
So restorative practices is a research-based initiative. But the idea of circles is indigenous. This is tribal. So you look back, years of history, there are cultures that facilitated circles. That's how elders met. That's how communities met. And the preface of what we are doing is based off of the indigenous history. And then we use local and recent research to help to make it relevant to what we're doing in the practices and the communities that we're serving. But, the restorative practice model covers many approaches, and it's restorative approaches. So restorative circles is just one of them, but it's based on the historic, indigenous, and cultural elements that our ancestors have facilitated, and we're bringing it to light now because we see the need in communities, and we wanted to help recreate a positive relationship that exists within the community, both in schools and families and businesses and partners that we are working with. But circles is a historic practice.
Yeah, at the African culture, so many different cultures have utilized circles as a way of building community. And we actually work with someone in Australia, and how they couple that circles with restorative justice, and how certain tribes utilize restorative practices as a way to, restorative justice as a way to assign, if someone broke an agreement within the community or within the tribe, they utilize circles as a way to come up with like a particular consequence of what may happen. And so are you speaking specifically about restorative practices? Or are you speaking specifically about our 5 foundational steps with at the Positive School Center?
Well, gratitude for both of the responses. I'm totally clear. I just wanted to know in regards to your school, where you adopted or copied the concept from. I just wanted to know if you actually linked it to the indigenous cultures, which I'm a part of, and I just wanted to understand. And since I have that understanding, I just wanted to say, well, I can definitely support the ideas, and and continue to do them with the understanding that I have, and incorporate, I guess, what other people need to know in terms of the validated sciences that supports its being actually restorative. So that's all. So it's good seeing you again. How you doing, Mama's brother Ibrahim? Okay.
How you doing?
I'm blessed. Long time.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm going to cut out, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
You're welcome. Be well, sir.
You as well, please.
Thank you. Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage my sister Natasha, who asked about incorporated in a school. Me and my school, actually, we started doing it at our staff meetings, and I can say I'm just a believer in a circle so much that I do it in my home, and then now when we do it in the school, I see that we bring together everybody. So a lot of times, especially when you got elementary, middle, some people don't get to know each other. You got different departments in the school. You got so many different turning wheels. But when you can actually have a circle with icebreakers to get to know each other, you can see perspectives. You can build unity. You can build rapport with people that you might just be cordial with. But now I get a chance to get to know you, and it actually enforces. It make you want to work a little harder, and you work a little. You say, I got your back. So I'm a believer in a circle, and I encourage everybody to use it personally, work wise, and wherever you can. You see somebody on the street, hey, let's have a circle. I want to get to know you. It's a big rapport builder. So I love it, and I thank you for y'all work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I know we're at time, but can I stay back and ask you a couple questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, to all of our participants, we again thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your participation, your questions, your affirmation. Please join us tomorrow for our social discipline window. A Restorative Approach to Self-Care with Andre Turner. And then on Wednesday, we have Shantae, who's coming with socially engineered trauma sets. And, again, everything we do is connected. We want to ensure that there's an understanding of social emotional learning, so trauma responsiveness, understanding that trauma happens to everyone in different levels. Also through a community voice, we lift the voice of our students and community members with restorative practice, but everything that we do is grounded and rooted in racial justice and equity. So we're gonna top the week off with that set so you hear a little bit more about the trauma and how we work through it to and beyond it to support our community. So again, I thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and a marvelous week. We hope to connect with you again tomorrow.
Thank you all.
And say, don't go.